Welcome back to the briefing. In this video, we are dissecting the intricate chess match defining contemporary Ugandan politics, from the halls of parliament to the core of our post-colonial identity. The power dynamics are shifting rapidly. We break down 5 profound insights that expose the strategic maneuvers, institutional flaws, and deep philosophical questions shaping the nation's future. Let's dive into what they say.
This way, there has been a convergence.
Andrew Mwenda said there was a convergence of two interests. On one hand, President Museveni sought to clip Anita amongst the growing influence within the NRM and government, seeing it as a potential threat to power. On the other, General Muhoozi's strong stance against corruption. This alignment of agendas created a unique political pressure point. Museveni wanted to curb a rising power center that could challenge his authority, while Muhoozi's anti-corruption drive provided the necessary public leverage. Together, these factors effectively isolated the speaker, showing how shifting internal dynamics can quickly reshape the landscape for the ruling elite.
This way, there has been a convergence of two different but self-reinforcing and compatible aims or pursuits. I believe that on the one hand, President Museveni found it necessary to clip Anita amongst wings because she had grown very powerful. On the other hand, okay, let me put it this way, President Museveni found it necessary and was seeking to clip Anita amongst wings because she had amassed a lot of power and influence within both NRM and the government that I suspect, this is me second reading Museveni, he felt she was going to pose a threat to his power over time. On the other hand, you have General Muhoozi, who is hostile to public corruption, but also public displays of ostentation and luxury. So the two pursuits converged on one single individual, Anita Among. So let me give.
Norbert Mao said, "We are operating within an alien system. If we are serious about building Uganda, we must first understand what Uganda truly is. Every post-colonial country has to contend with an inherited state, which is why ritualism is still evident in many institutions. Mao believes our governance structures remain fundamentally detached from the citizens they are meant to serve. Because we rely on bureaucratic frameworks left behind by colonial authorities, our public institutions engage in performative displays of power rather than solving deep-rooted structural crises, stalling actual progress and national development across the country."
First of all, let me tell you of my thinking. You know, we are operating an alien system. Here with us, we have people who are very highly educated in some of the best schools. This Ugandan state is, you know, grafted, and it actually has no roots in our history because it is a result of a colonial project. I think we must first deal with that reality. So, if we are serious about building Uganda, we must start by understanding what Uganda is. We call ourselves here now a panel, but we all have our tribes where we come from. The British came and declared all of us to be Ugandans. The old man's people did not fill an application form to become Ugandans. Neither did my people. We just woke up one day and we are being told from now when you go to school you must sing "Oh Uganda," and you say, what is Uganda? And so every African country, actually every country with a colonial history has to deal with this dilemma of the alien state. And that is why you see we have a lot of ritualism in this parliament and most of the organs. You have even had the president complaining. Point of order, point of information, procedure. If you brought someone from my village who has never attended parliament and they are told that they are trying to find solutions to your problems of malaria and lack of good seeds and fertilizers and market for your good, they'll say, I don't believe you.
Andrew Mwenda came back saying Anita made one key mistake, where deliberately or innocently she gave President Museveni the rope to hang her by openly displaying excessive luxury, something that did not sit well with the public. Mwenda notes that this visible opulence provoked strong resentment from citizens dealing with severe economic hardships. By flaunting her wealth so publicly, she alienated ordinary Ugandans and handed her political adversaries the perfect weapon. This public backlash provided the executive with the necessary justification to step in, dismantle her growing political influence, and systemically weaken her position within the regime.
Now, Anita Mong had done one big mistake, either deliberately or innocently. She had given Museveni a rope to hang her, and had written this in April 2024. Her ostentatious living, her luxury mansions, her expensive cars and dresses, all those things tended to alienate her in the eyes of the Ugandan public. Ugandan public did not like her. And there were exhibitions of
Parliament.
Corruption. Not parliamentary exhibition of the Agatha Twaires, no. I'm saying she exhibited a lot of wealth and affluence and luxury. But that not only revolted many elite Ugandans against her, but it also gave Museveni a rope with which to hang her. So at any one time, I felt she was vulnerable. At one time, I thought maybe Museveni may keep her because she was so vulnerable. He knew he can anytime call upon her financial indiscretions to get even with her. Now, of course, human beings as we are made, we are always driven by the personal. People are...
The Norbert again said we are facing what is known as the national question. How do we forge one nation and share national habits that unite us out of many diverse peoples? Mao challenges us to look beyond historical tribal lines and political divisions to find a common purpose. He argues that Uganda's primary struggle is not simply about distributing state resources or managing administrative boundaries, but about building a cohesive identity without a shared consciousness where every single citizen feels included. The country will continue to struggle with deep divisions that prevent true national unity.
The political scientists also have another challenge we are facing, which they call the national question. How to mold or to forge one nation out of very diverse peoples, different cultures, different languages, and different practices. How do we develop the national habits that unify us? That is what we call the national question. It is simplified as building national unity. That's why the Americans have their motto, a pluribus unum, out of many, one. But even them, they finally realized that the concept of a melting pot is not viable. So now they call it a salad bowl, meaning an orange remains an orange, a tomato remains a tomato, a cabbage remains a cabbage, an onion remains an onion, but in the same bowl. That's how you grow to respect one another. And that means we must deal with the question of domination. you know, the challenge is always to deal with domination or hegemony. Now, these are preconditions for the kind of drama we see. Those are, if you have a big wound on your leg, you normally develop a swelling on your upper thigh. It is natural. Now, if you focus all your energy on that swelling without treating the wound, you will never actually deal with that swelling.
Mwenda made it clear that he doesn't think Anita's problem was corruption. She didn't take money out of parliament for personal use. She actually used the money to build Museveni's political base. Mwenda explains that her financial decisions were entirely about building political capital and patronage for the ruling system. Instead of personal enrichment, these funds were redirected to secure loyalty and maintain the regime's grip on power. In this complex political environment, our actions serve to reinforce the existing establishment, demonstrating that the line between corruption and political loyalty is ultimately defined by strategic survival.
People were, I do not think that Anita Mong's problem was corruption, because remember that Anita Mong did not take money out of parliament necessarily for her personal use. That was a small side effect. Anita Mong's use of parliamentary money was actually to build Museveni's political base. In fact, to get Museveni's legislation in the parliament passed. Because I am reliably informed that before Anita Mong became Speaker of Parliament, whenever Museveni needed major legislation to go through Parliament, a major action to take place, he would invite these Omaras, these MPs, to State House, give them tea, pay their transport, pay their medical bills, pay their children's fees, clear their loans, spend a lot of money in order to get the vote. When Anita came in, she said, okay, Musa, you don't have to do that. Let me handle Parliament for you. You see, the strength of Anita Mong, people don't know, is she has excellent interpersonal skills. That is why she's so effective in electoral colleges. And she may not be effective in a presidential campaign where you are elected by anonymous people. Why she was effective in electoral colleges? Because if you meet her and deal with her at a personal level, she's a very generous and people think she was using money, but Mong was using 20 to 25% of the money Museveni was using to get 300% of the results Museveni was getting. Museveni was spending a lot of money and getting, like in this election on Olanya. Olanya got 55% of the vote as speaker. But for her, she would use less money and get bigger results.
So 5 points, one complex reality. As the lines between political patronage, institutional heritage, and public perception continue to blur, Uganda stands at a fascinating crossroads. What do you think lies ahead for the balance of power? Hit that subscribe button, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and stay tuned for our next deep dive. Until next time, stay informed.